because I keep seeing, Israel defenders and people who want this war come to me with like, oh, but look at this poll. Look at what the Iranian people are saying. They want this. No, they say they want regime change. Not done by you. Not done by you. Very simple.
Mr. President, have you given to answer questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset?
Well, obviously, I can't say that, right?
But
You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch?
But would you say
You don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble.
Well, he's right about one thing. No one knows what he's going to do because our president is not guided by any particular ideology, feels like he shoots from the hip. And even though a huge component of his base consists of individuals who do not want war and specifically voted for him because they don't want war, he might wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? I want to bomb Iran. Why not? He might do it tonight. I might get another surprise during our bonus episode today. But nonetheless, that was our President Donald Trump at the White House this morning, just flippantly responding to a question about whether or not the United States is about to engage in a hot offensive war with Iran, which would be, in my opinion, a complete and utter disaster. Now, last night he posted on social media that we have total and complete control of the skies above Iran, following a post that simply said, this is so clownish. Unconditional surrender in all caps. Okay, so let's just pause and talk about the stupidity of this. Like the stupidity of the ask, okay? So Israel carries out a surprise offensive attack on Iran. They take out nuclear scientists, high-level officials, civilians died because they also made sure to bomb the nuclear scientists' home as they were at home sleeping with their families. Entire apartment buildings. So there were hundreds of people have already been killed in Iran. What would make Donald Trump think that Iran, which let's not pretend like Iran is not a country with decent military capability. Why wouldn't they want to defend themselves? Why would they agree to continue negotiations? And by the way, what does unconditional surrender even mean? It's just, this is what I mean when I say that he is not really guided by any particular ideology or strategy. Sometimes that yields interesting results. Sometimes it yields devastating results. And that's what I'm worried about here. So he was asked by reporters what exactly that meant. And well, his answer wasn't really reassuring.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means.
Can you explain it for those who don't?
Very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place. They're totally defenseless. They have no air defense whatsoever. Totally captured. We totally captured the air.
We're gonna bomb a lot of their nuclear stuff. It's all over the place. Multiple sources, including a senior intelligence official and a Department of Defense official, told media outlets last night that the US is indeed seriously considering getting involved in the offensive against Iran. And if we do, by the way, one possible target is a nuclear site that I'm sure you guys have heard of before. It's the Fordo site. And it's an underground uranium enrichment site that's believed to be the most likely location for a hypothetical nuclear weapons program. Because guys, Wall Street Journal actually published an incredible piece yesterday. And in that piece, they go into the details of how the Israelis had shared intel with the United States, with the Trump administration, indicating that Iran was weeks away from having nuclear weapons. And you want to know something? The Trump administration rejected it because it totally conflicted with what our intelligence community had found. And I'm sure you guys have seen that video of, the director of Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she's speaking before Congress and she's like, there's no indication that they're building a nuclear weapon. She did admit that they've enriched uranium quite a bit to 60%. You need it at 90% in order to have weapons grade uranium. But she even addressed the 2003 suspension of Iran's nuclear program. She notes that the Ayatollah did not lift that suspension. They haven't started building any type of nuclear weapon. I mean, obviously, there's conflicting intel here. We have US intel, and then you have intel coming from the Israelis who want us to go to war on their behalf. And anyone who tries to gaslight you and tell you that's not true, look, all you have to do is go on X, go on social media, follow what some of these, Israeli politicians are saying. There was a picture I came across today on X featuring like these big banners that were posted in Israel, essentially encouraging President Trump to join the war. I mean, look, Israel cannot defeat Iran by itself. And Netanyahu knew that, which is why he did this surprise attack. And he's hoping that the US gets dragged into it and that, Trump is going to be forced to, help Israel. I don't think that they're going to be able to defeat Iran. I'm just keeping it real. I think they might destroy Iran, but I don't know what happened to the Houthis in Yemen. Houthis, guys. Houthis are backed by Iran. It's an Iranian proxy in Yemen. We went to war with them for years and we didn't defeat them. So what gives anyone the idea that it would be a cakewalk? That it would just be maybe a few months, do a quick little regime change sesh. No, it would be incredibly difficult. A lot of innocent people would die. You would need boots on the ground. You can't do what Israel's doing with aerial bombardments of Gaza, along with shooting hungry Palestinians to death as they're at humanitarian aid hubs, hoping to get their hands on some flowers so they don't die. But this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. So American assistance could, by the way, include providing air cover for Israeli commandos who go into Iran on the ground. But officials said the more probable outcome is a strike by US B-2 stealth bombers armed with the massive ordnance penetrator, a weapon that theoretically has the ability to bore into the mountain that shelters the underground Fordo facility. People think that this is a crazy thing to say. I don't think it's crazy anymore at all. You have to keep in mind that a lot of countries that are governed in ways that we don't agree with, like Pakistan, for instance, Pakistan has nukes. Yeah. Israel does not want Iran to have a deterrent, and nuclear weapons are deterrents. And quite frankly, look, there's no evidence that they're close to building a nuclear weapon. Even if they were at 90% enriched uranium today, it would still take them many months, maybe even several years to be able to build the nuclear weapons. So I'm not even worried about them having a nuclear weapon right now. However, let's say worst case scenario for the Israelis, they have a nuclear weapon already. Do I think they're going to drop a nuke on Israel? No, I don't. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they are under the impression that Israel is out of control, is currently governed by a belligerent prime minister, along with other members of that government, some of whom have been convicted of terrorism, wanting to just wreck that region of the world on their behest, on their behalf. It's just ridiculous. So don't you think that some of Israel's behavior might encourage a country like Iran, which has been the target, the focus of Benjamin Netanyahu for 33 years? Don't you think they might want to build a weapon to deter someone like Netanyahu from invading? And yes, I know. Iranians in the past, especially under Ahmadinejad, who is no longer the president of Iran, okay, he's been out of power for a long time. You would hear the chants of like death to America. But if we're gonna start engaging in regime change wars over chance, does that mean, hey, you know what? the Israeli government, a lot of those politicians have said some pretty crazy genocidal things. Should we invade that country? It's just so dumb. And that's the only answer. It's always war. War is the only answer. War is the only answer. And like Trump pressuring Iran to engage in diplomatic talks to get a new nuclear deal. Look, I want to encourage that because I don't want war. But can he at least for once in his life, recognize that ripping up the JCPOA, the original nuclear deal with Iran, was a complete and utter disaster? This guy loves to break things. And then if he succeeds in fixing it, he gives himself props. Like, I broke what I fixed. I fixed what I broke. But in this case, it doesn't appear he's going to be able to fix it. Again, as we've said many times, despite Netanyahu's repeated claims that Iran is days away from acquiring a nuclear weapon, that is not true based on actual facts. So a US intelligence assessment from earlier this year found that Iran is not building nuclear weapons. That was what Tulsi Gabbard was testifying about in Congress. And just yesterday, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which the Israelis love to cite lately, doubled down on those findings. That's interesting. Let's take a look.
I mean, there is this competition about who is wrong or right about the time that would be needed. Certainly, it was not for tomorrow, maybe not a matter of years. I would there be perhaps more serious about this, and I don't think it was a matter of years. But this is speculation. Why? These things we don't know. Because if there was some activity which was clandestine or hidden or away from our inspectors, we couldn't know. What we informed and what we reported was that we did not have, as in coincidence with some of the sources you mentioned there, that we did not have any proof of a systematic effort to move into a nuclear weapon.
But Israel has conflicting intel. I mean, they don't have a conflict of interest or anything, so we should just believe them and then go to war with Iran. Absolute insanity, like just so crazy. Let's also not forget that Iran has been part of the non-proliferation treaty. Israel has not. Also, Israel's the one with nuclear weapons that they don't acknowledge. And the fact that they're not in the non-proliferation treaty, the fact that they do not have international inspectors come in as they do with a country that might be developing a nuclear weapon. It's the double standard drives me crazy. And by the way, why does Israel have nuclear weapons? Do I think Israel is genuinely going to use nuclear weapons? No, they've learned other ways to kill off possibly an entire ethnic group. However, I know that Israel probably has those nukes as a deterrent. I don't want to live in a world where nukes even exist. I hate nuclear weapons. I wish we could just get rid of them across the board, but we don't live in that world. And when you have an aggressor in the region, and yes, Israel is the aggressor in this region, and they're constantly trying to annex parts of Middle Eastern countries, as they've done with Syria, they've tried to do with Lebanon. Obviously, they've been occupying the West Bank. They're going to take it over entirely, annex that. They're going to annex Gaza. Don't you think that maybe the belligerence of the government of Israel is encouraging or could encourage other countries in the region to desire a deterrent like a nuclear weapon? Things don't just happen in a vacuum. We have to talk about cause and effect here. But we live in America and we're discouraged from doing that when it comes to this specific context, when it's involving Israel. We should not go to war. It would be such a disaster at a time when we can't afford it, our country's falling apart. This would be lunacy. But getting back to the escalating conflict, unsurprisingly, after Trump ramped up his threatening rhetoric yesterday, that's when he did so, Iranian leader Ayatollah Khamenei responded in kind, because that's what happens. Let's take a look.
The President of the United States, in unacceptable remarks, explicitly calls on the Iranian nation to surrender. But we say to him, first, Make threats to those who are afraid of them. Threats have never influenced the behaviour or thinking of the Iranian people. Second, telling the Iranian nation to surrender is not a rational statement. Wise individuals who are familiar with the Iranian people and their history would never utter such words, because the Iranian nation is not one that surrenders and will never submit to anyone's aggression.
Right, and again, what does surrender even mean? What does that even mean? Like, hey, listen, bro, we'd rather not spend trillions of dollars in a prolonged regime change war with you. So can we just like skip ahead to the regime change without the war? Which, by the way, I mean, if that would be amazing and miraculous if that happened, but that would never happen. That would never happen. All right, so meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about the war hawkery that's happening in this country, because the battle between the isolationists and the war hawks is continuing to heat up. And honestly, that is a silver lining in this whole situation, because it does prove to me that there is a portion of Trump's base, more importantly, I'm talking about the voters, but even in elected office, you have some politicians who are willing to push back against this narrative that's being forced upon us by Israel, by the war hawks. So anyway, this is one of my favorite videos. I watched it several times in a row because it's like a parody of himself. This is Mark Levin. He's one of the top war hawks. He was on Fox last night. Get a load of this guy.
Donald Trump is a forever war president. How so? He's going to do what every president before him since Carter didn't have the guts to do. He's going to put an end to this damn thing. And that's what needs to happen. That's not a warmonger. That's a peacemaker. That is a man who's going to make sure this generation and future generations are protected from nuclear missiles coming out of the Middle East, from barbarian primitives from the 7th century. That's what he wants to do. And then I hear the questions. Well, won't this create a bigger war? Really, with who? The Israelis are kicking their asses left and right, and the U.S. hasn't even gotten involved directly. Yeah, so where are they? They're nowhere. How about China? Nowhere. How about Russia? Nowhere. What happened to World War III? There is no World War III. They all sound like a bunch of Marxist Islamists. They don't sound like patriotic Americans. Let me be clear. This is good versus evil. You're either a patriotic American who's going to get behind the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, or you're not. Folks, this is black and white. You're either on the side of the red, white, and blue, or you're on the other side. It's that simple.
Marxist Islamists. Why is he yelling? Like, why is he always animated? I get it. Look, we live in a glass house, okay, especially Jake more than me. But I get heated. It's usually tied to something that's making me angry. In this case, you have Mark Levin, who seems to be getting what he wants. Why are you still angry? And let's talk about barbaric behavior. Let's do that. Because let's focus on Iran first, because there is barbaric behavior in Iran. I'm not an idiot. Okay, I don't think that the entirety of Iran is like this backwards, terrible country. People are primitive. Like, no, I don't believe that at all. It's actually a pretty diverse country. The people of Iran absolutely do want different leadership. They do want regime change, but they do not want Israel to come in and do it. They're like terrified of that. And by the way, how is Israel trying to do this? Hundreds of people, innocent people have already been killed. I'm not talking about, the targets that Israel was focusing on. I'm talking about all the innocent civilians who have already died in Iran as a result of these strikes. They're not in any way wanting Israel to come in and install some puppet government. So let's just get that out of the way, because I keep seeing, Israel defenders and people who want this war come to me with like, oh, but look at this poll. Look at what the Iranian people are saying. They want this. No, they say they want regime change. Not done by you. Not done by you. Very simple. Anyway, then you have the other so in Iran, look, we covered that story of the young woman who was executed because she wasn't wearing her headdress perfectly. A little bit of her hair was showing. She was imprisoned. There were mass protests around it. And eventually she was executed. And that was so barbaric and so gross. And a lot of countries across the globe do barbaric and gross things. We don't threaten to invade them. We don't risk the lives of our soldiers to invade them. It's not our job to be the world's police. But now let's talk about the barbarism and barbaric behavior on the other side. Are the Israelis who are currently carrying out a genocide in Gaza really going to tell us about how this is a war between civilization and barbarism? Who are the barbarians here? Because I see a lot of barbaric activity happening and carried out by the IDF. Dude, they bombed the Iranian embassy in Syria. They bombed it. Think about how crazy that is. And in retaliation, you want to know what Iran did? That scary country that's going to drop a nuke on the United States and Israel. You want to know what they did in retaliation? They waited a while. And then they let the United States and Israel know 72 hours in advance, we're going to do these drone strikes. Here's where the drone strikes are going to be. The US shot them down. Jordan shot them down. Not a single civilian was harmed. Not a single person was harmed. There was a little bit of property damage. But like, what are we doing here? Are we really pretending like the Israelis and the IDF, they're angels? They would never do anything barbaric. Like they would never do something as disgusting and barbaric as shooting and killing over 100 Palestinians in Gaza yesterday alone as they were at those humanitarian hubs trying to get flour so they don't die of starvation. You know what that is? That's barbaric. That's barbaric. Yeah, go ahead. Call me an anti-Semite when I give you a specific thing that happened just yesterday in Gaza that is barbaric. Don't talk to me ever about how this is a war between civilization and barbarism. There's plenty of barbaric garbage happening right now at the hands of the IDF. That doesn't provide cover for the barbaric stuff that happens at the hands of, the Shiite leadership in Iran. But if we're gonna use this case as justification for invading Iran, well, the same argument could be made for Israel. So I would be real careful. All right, I got worked up. Sorry, I kind of lost my place. Now, luckily, as Cenk shared with you guys on the show yesterday, I don't care. John Fetterman can kick rocks. Like I can't stand the guy. He wants to like drone strike them. But luckily, as Cenk shared with you guys on the show yesterday, the overwhelming majority of American people are not on the side of the hawks. Now, they might agree that it's not good for Iran to have nuclear weapons, but they do not want to engage in war with Iran. So a new Economist YouGov poll released yesterday found that only 16% of Americans back US involvement in the war. That's the most important number, okay? 60% say the US should not be involved. And only 23% of Republicans said we should join the war. 23% of Republicans. Thank God, okay? Thank God. I don't know if it's gonna sway Trump in any direction. I really hope he listens to his base. But I've grown to be super pessimistic about pretty much everyone in positions of power in our government. So I hope I'll be pleasantly surprised, but something tells me I won't be. We'll see.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.